FA fam, what is up? What is happening? We are back again for another week, riding solo today because Cody apparently has things going on that are more important. I think he has to take his wife somewhere. So, you got to do what you got to do to keep the wife happy. So, anyways, I am running this solo today. So, I got you guys. We are here to win championships. We are only a few more weeks away. Actually, yeah, week and a half away from the fantasy playoffs to start. So, this is crunch time for a lot of people. So, we need some dubs today so we can get ourselves into the fantasy playoffs and win some chips. So, let's go ahead and get right into it. Start things off. We got Ken MacArthur rocking with us back in the chat. Half point PPR, Jameson Williams, Chase Claypool, MVS, Duvernay, or London. I can't play Jameson Williams. I have no idea what his role is going to be in this offense, how much he's going to play. It sounds like he's going to be extremely limited. So I'm not playing him. And then you have MVS, who I don't think you can trust either on a week to week basis. I actually think this is Chase Claypool. I know he has a tougher matchup going up against Mackenzie Alexander, but this should be a game that has some sneaky shootout potential. And so I would go Chase Claypool here. No, we also don't have Darnell Mooney in this offense. Justin Fields is back, so that is good news. I am actually much higher on Justin Fields than I was earlier in the week. I think Justin Fields is a top 5 quarterback this week. I think you lock him in. If you have him, you're playing him. Unless you have one of the, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Jalen Hurts. Those would be the guys that I would only play above him. He practiced in full all week, so I think those are all positives. And this game has a pretty nice game script here. So I would go Chase Claypool there, Ken. ET, hey guys, should I start Dak over Lamar this week? I think that's a really good question. I think I would. This is a tough matchup against Denver. Denver's defense has been really good this year, and Lamar just hasn't really been great. He's good. Like, he's going to get you, 17, 18, 19, 20 fantasy points, but we haven't seen those boom productions like we did earlier in the year, week 2, week 3, where they scored 43 and 40. So I think I like this game a little bit better with Dak going up against the Colts tonight on Sunday Night Football. So I think I would go Dak there. It's just tough to trust Lamar. Their offense hasn't been great, and it's not a great matchup against a pretty good defense. So I think I would rock with Dak there. Truth Teller, sup guys, sup Truth Teller. Hope you guys have a great weekend. Got a last minute decision on my quarterback. Fields is playing, so him or Watson. Yep, I am playing Justin Fields here. I know there's a little bit of risk there with the injury, but like I said, he practiced in full. Sean Watson. I don't know if this is a game they really have to do a whole lot with Sean Watson. I feel like that, with the team they're playing in Houston, I don't think they throw the ball a whole lot. You can beat them on the ground. I think it's a big Nick Chubb week. So I would go Justin Fields here over Deshaun Watson. Crystal, one running back, one flex. Currently have Cordell Patterson, Rashad White, Jamal Williams, Brandon Ayuk, Christian Kirk, Peoples Jones, full PPR. I don't trust CPAT. Neither do I. So at running back, I would go Rashad White here. I know Leonard Fournette is expected to return in this game, but I still think that Rashad White is going to be the lead back here in this offense. I don't think just because Leonard Fournette comes back, he's going to all of a sudden take over this backfield. We saw even prior to Leonard Fournette getting hurt that Rashad White, kind of took over the backfield a little bit. I still think it's a little bit more of a, even split, but compared to the other running backs here, Jamal Williams has been good, but he's just completely touchdown dependent. If he doesn't score a touchdown, he's not, he doesn't do absolutely nothing. He's been one of the most inefficient running backs in the league this year. So I would go Rashad White. And then in the flex, I think I'm gonna go Christian Kirk here. He's the wide receiver I like the most out of this. I do like Brandon Ayuk quite a bit, but I would have liked him a little bit more if Deebo Samuel was projected to be out. He's not. It is looking like Deebo Samuel is expected to play now, and so that lowers what I feel about Brandon Ayuk a little bit. But Christian Kirk is in an absolute great spot. I am just outside of wide receiver 1 this week, wide receiver 13 overall for me for Christian Kirk, in a great matchup against Detroit. I know last week it was Zay Jones that kind of went off, but I think Christian Kirk bounces back in a pretty big way today. So really like Christian Kirk here. And so I would go Christian Kirk as my other wide receiver. Noel, Lockett or Ayuk, full PPR. This is a close one for me. I just talked about Brandon Ayuk. And then Tyler Lockett is somebody that I kind of like as well in this Rams defense, who's banged up, missing a lot of pieces here on both sides of the football, really. I don't think game script so much is going to be there as much. So I think this this 49er game looks much more to be more of a little more of a shootout, push the pace here. And so I like Ayuk just a little bit more than Tyler Lockett. So I would go Brandon Ayuk here on that one. And then Noel, Fields, or Watson. Again, this is Fields. I'm not worried about the rushing upside here for Justin Fields. He's practiced in full multiple times this week. I think those are really good. That's really good. If there was any concern with that he takes some bad hit that he's not going to be able to do it, then I don't think he'd be out here playing. And so I'm not worried about it. And then, like I said, there's a lot of things that can go wrong here for Deshaun Watson. He hasn't played in 700 days in an NFL football game. The game script's really not going to be there. It's possible that Houston can keep this game close because the Cleveland defense isn't great. But I just lean towards Fields. We know he has a 40-point upside. It's in the range of his outcomes, and I can't say the same for Deshaun Watson. So I'm going to play Justin Fields here and what I think is a really good matchup against Green Bay. Start Deshaun Watson. It would just depend on what other options you had there, Crystal. I, I still have Deshaun Watson. I think I have him at QB 14 this week. I moved him down a little bit from where I had him prior, but I just think there are some better options. So it would depend on who you have on if I'm going to play him or not. Oliver, good morning. Fields or Deshaun? This must be the biggest question of the week for everybody because this is like the third time we've had it. Again, we're rocking Justin Fields. Upside, everything else I've already said. I'm not worried about the injury or risk and everything else. You could say that about any player. Yes, he hurt a shoulder, but I'm just not concerned with it. His ceiling is so immense. Again, 30, 40 fantasy points is definitely there, and so I'm going to go with Justin Fields once again. James, Zonovan Knight, or Pacheco. This is an interesting one because it looks like they're going to have active James Robinson, which doesn't really factor in for me. This is a middle of the road matchup for Zonovan Knight, mainly because of Minnesota has been a decent against the run this year. They're not great, they're not bad. Minnesota ranks 16th in rush DVOA, so about as middle of the road as you can possibly get. It I it is looking like it's probably going to be somewhat of a committee with Ty Johnson and and James Robinson here. I do like Zonovan Knight, but I would probably lean towards Pacheco. Uh, it's he's really taken over this backfield. I don't have the same concerns. The only concerns I would have for somebody like Isaiah Pacheco is how much opportunity is he going to see? Because Kansas City Chiefs, especially Andy Reid, tends to especially if he can get away from the run, he will. And so it's possible he doesn't see as many opportunities. Maybe they utilize him a little bit more in the passing game, but touchdown volume and touchdown equity is definitely going to be there for him. And so I would lean towards Isaiah Pacheco and one of the highest game totals on the week. This looks like could be an absolute shootout, one of the best games of the season. So I would lean towards Pacheco. I like Zonovan Knight. He's definitely a hold. He could end up being the starting running back for this team for the rest of the season. But just for this week, I think I would lean towards Pacheco, and I in this situation, and just kind of see what how things are going to play out for Zonovan Knight and the rest of this offense. So, True Teller, DPJ or Swift at the flex? Can I trust Swift to give me some value today? I'm going to go Swift. I really like DeAndre Swift this week. If you look at him last week, he saw 8 targets in that game. The last time they played, they get Jacksonville. Jacksonville is not a great defense that we're truly concerned about, but again, this and the games in the stadium have really pushed. They've averaged 62 points per game in games in Detroit, and so this kind of sets up to be the same thing here. I think you could see a lot of targets for DeAndre Swift. He doesn't necessarily need a ton of targets, so as long as we're talking about a PPR format league, then I'm going to go DeAndre Swift here over Donovan Peoples Jones. I think this could be a really good spot for DeAndre Swift this week to kind of get back right and a really good matchup against Jacksonville. So I'm going to go DeAndre Swift. Johnny Be Good, half PPR, Pierce or Alave, full PPR, Kamara, Swift, Pacheco, or Murray. Thanks. Okay. So on the first one here, I'm going to go Damian Pierce. The thing is with Damian Pierce is game script, right? He's been game scripted out over the last couple of weeks. They've got the doors blown off of him each of the last couple of weeks. With Damian Pierce, though, this is one of the best matchups you possibly could get all year. The Cleveland run defense has been putrid. They're 31st in rush DVOA. They'll have the second most PPR points to running backs on the season. And so this is a very good matchup. Looks probably going to be a little bit more slow paced. I'm not really concerned with this game getting out of control like you see in most weeks against this Houston Texans team. So I think this can be a game that they stay in this. And so I like Pierce a little bit more in Olave. I think it's a better matchup here for Damian Pierce. And if he can't get it done this week, I don't know if you could ever trust him again, honestly, because this is about as good as you can possibly ask for Damian Pierce. So I'm going to go with Damian Pierce in this one. And then on the other question you have here in full PPR, Kamara, Swift, Pacheco, or Murray. I'm going to go with Kamara here, mainly because it's full PPR and he's going to see a lot of targets. He has over a 20% target share in this offense. He's seeing 6+ targets per game. Comparatively, like I already mentioned, I like Swift quite a bit, but I'm not playing him over Kamara. So I'm going to go with Alvin Kamara here as the other option. So we're going to go Pierce and Kamara in this situation. So, okay, never mind. I saw the next one. So you need two for that one. So I'm going to go. So with this, I'm going to go with Kamara and Swift as the two running backs here. I would go with and bench Pacheco and Murray. Andrea, Josh Palmer or George Pickens? This is a good question, and I can see why you're asking it because both of these guys I think are in a really good spot. We've kind of seen George Pickens take over this backfield, this wide receiver room. Deontay Johnson is obviously still there, but George Pickens appears to be the favorite of Kenny Pickett, and this is a great matchup against the Atlanta Falcons. Then you have Josh Palmer on the other side, who's also in a really good matchup against a really bad Raiders defense. However, I lean towards George Pickens here, and mainly it's because with Josh Palmer, you really want to attack the Raiders in the slot. They've actually done a pretty good job against opposing wide receiver ones, and right now that's kind of the role he's playing. Opposing outside wide receivers, they really struggle in the slot, which is Keenan Allen's spot. And so with Josh Palmer, I like him a lot. I like him quite a bit. Still a good matchup, but I'm going to lean towards George Pickens here. I just think he's in a much better spot. I'm not really concerned so much about the matchups here. And then so I'm going to go with George Pickens on this one. Josh Palmer is a good play. I still think he's kind of like a low end wide receiver 2, high end wide receiver 3. But I like George Pickens quite a bit this week, and I think he's in a very, very good spot. So I'm going to go with George Pickens here against Atlanta. Truth Teller. I even got Patty Fry as an option on my bench for my flex position. So DPJ Swift, Patty Fry, Kelsey is my tight end, obviously. So with this one, I'm still going to go with Swift. I already, kind of already talked through Swift, but I do like Patty Fry. I think he's a pretty solid option. He sees a lot of underneath targets in this offense, but I'm just going to lean a little bit more towards Swift this week. Like I said, I think this is a pretty solid bounce back spot for DeAndre Swift. Abraham, what's up? What's up, Abraham? Hope you are doing well. I have Najee Sanders, Pittman, Knight, and Jacobs. I have Jacobs at my flex in case he doesn't play. I can swap Pittman in. For my other two running backs, who would you choose? Najee Sanders and Zonovan Knight. So with it really worries me with Najee the fact that he did not practice all week, and then he came back, he practiced a little bit on Friday, and then all of a sudden now he says he's playing and he's good to go. It worries me that he could be in a full on committee with Jaylen Warren, here in this backfield this week. And I like Najee Harris. I think if you want to take the risk and want to go Najee because it's a great matchup against a really bad Atlanta run defense, I think you can do that. But understand there's a lot of risk there with him because one bad hit could re-injure this injury for him. He was kind of a weird thing last week. He kind of played a little bit, but they were still mixing in a lot of the other running backs. We could see a very similar type of game script here against Atlanta. So, but with the options that you have here, I think I would still go Najee if you want to go with the risk. If you don't, then just lock in Sanders and Zonovan Knight. And then I 100% agree. You're already at a good spot with Pittman, where if Jacobs doesn't play, then you have somebody to fill in for him because I think he plays. I think Josh Jacobs does play. I would be kind of surprised if he didn't, but with the risk there, I think you're still in a pretty good spot. I know he's supposed to work out pregame, and we're not going to know until probably around 2:30 or 3, depending on where you're at. So just monitor that situation. But I think that's where I would go. If you don't want to take the risk for Najee, I think you can plug in Miles Sanders. But it's just a really bad matchup against a Tennessee run defense that has been really, really good. They're one of the best run defenses in the league. So I don't love going Miles Sanders, but if you're don't want to play Najee because of that injury, I can understand. So then I would shift over to Najee here in that situation. So Dak or Kirk Cousins. This is Dak for me for sure. I just like him a little bit more than Kirk Cousins this week. Anthony, Olave, Pacheco, or P. Ryan, full PPR. I'm going to go with Samaji P. Ryan here. This sets up to be a really good spot. Looks like Joe Mixon is going to, in fact, miss. At least right before I got on, that was the word with Joe Mixon, that it was not looking positive that he was going to play. Reportedly a long shot to play. I don't think he's going to play. He hasn't cleared concussion protocol yet. I would be shocked at this point if he plays. So P. Ryan is in a really good spot. We know he catches passes out of this backfield as well. And so the Chiefs have struggled at times to stop the run. And so I just think everything here, he's kind of game script proof, because even if they do get down by the Chiefs, he's still going to be involved in the passing game. So I would go with Samaje P. Ryan here in a full PPR with the other options you have. Mark, full PPR or half, or yeah, full PPR, Pittman or Pierce in my flex. I'm going to go with Damian Pierce here. We already talked about this matchup, how great it is. Cleveland's terrible against the run. His main problem has mainly been, game script dependent. I'm not really so concerned with that with Cleveland. So let's rock with Damian Pierce here with this one. Lord help us all. Hopefully he bounces back. Cubanito, full PPR, McLaurin, Jeff Wilson, AJ Dillon, Christian Watson, Pacheco, Lazard. Pick only one from this group. All right. Let's see. So let's go Terry McLaurin here. I have him ranked the highest. I do think Christian Watson and really Alan Lazard are both in really good spots this week. But I just lean a little bit more towards McLaurin against the Jets. I have McLaurin ranked 14th. He's the number one option here um, for Taylor Heineke here in this passing offense. I just have the other two a little bit lower. I have Christian Watson ranked higher than Alan Lazard, but I have them both behind Terry McLaurin here. So if you're searching for straight ceiling, I would go Christian Watson. We've seen all the touchdown equity that he's got, but eventually that's going to settle down here a little bit. And so I just think in a full PPR flex, I'm going to go with Terry McLaurin here in that spot. True Teller again. Gus Edwards or Kamara. It's gonna be Kamara. Um, and then with Debo, like it sounds like he's going to play. I think the word that came out this morning was that he's expected to play, which was kind of surprising because it wasn't looking that way heading into this weekend because he didn't really get a whole lot done. But right now, Debo Samuel does plan to play. I don't know if you have any other options that you could possibly pivot to, because I would definitely rather play Debo Samuel than Gus Edwards, because this isn't a great matchup for Gus Edwards against Denver. But um, I'm gonna go Kamara, and then I'm gonna go with Debo, because I do think Debo Samuel plays. But I would be interested to know, True Teller, do you have any other options that you could possibly pivot to if you don't? Because I definitely want to play both of those, but I also don't want to be in a bad spot. But I'm not sitting Debo Samuel with the reports out that sounds like he's expecting to play. James, Mike White or Jimmy G? Did not think we would have this as a question this year, but here we are. Gotta love fantasy football. So I'm going to go with Jimmy G here. I have Jimmy G a little bit higher than Mike White. I have Jimmy G ranked at 16th this week. I have Mike White at 18th. So I would just lean a little bit more towards Jimmy Garoppolo. Both are in, I think, pretty good spots. Both defenses really struggle to stop opposing wide receivers and just really opposing passing games for that matter. But I'm going to trust Jimmy Garoppolo a little bit more than Mike White. I know Mike White looked really good last week in that game against Chicago, but this is a little bit tougher matchup on the road against the Vikings. So I'm just going to lean towards Jimmy Garoppolo here with George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, and hopefully Debo Samuel. So go Jimmy Garoppolo. Crystal, top quarterbacks on waivers are Goff, Pickett, Jones, Mariota. I normally would have Murray, but he's on bye, and have Deshaun Watson as well. So I really like Jared Goff here in this matchup against Jacksonville. We've already hit on this game a little bit, but this game really has, I think it's the second highest total on the game on the week. It has a 50-point total. The Lions have the fourth highest point total or implied point total this week, team total this week. And so this is a really good spot for Jared Goff. And then I think Kenny Pickett also is in play as well. But with Deshaun Watson, I think I would lean Deshaun Watson just a little bit more. I have Deshaun Watson ranked higher. I have Deshaun Watson, like I said, at 14, where I have Jared Goff at 16. Um, if you want a little bit more safety, I think that's Jared Goff at home because Jared Goff has been two different players when he's at home versus when he's away. But so I would lean towards Deshaun Watson. But if you went Jared Goff, I can understand it as well. But those would be the two options that I would definitely look at. Abraham, do you think James Robinson will lead the back? No, I don't. They had every intention. He was healthy last week. He was a healthy scratch last week for the Jets. And so, I mean, they decided to go with Zonovan Knight over James Robinson. And a lot of it's just because James Robinson has been terrible. I mean, since they've acquired him, he's done nothing. I mean, he's been bad. Really, since when he was with the Jaguars to really start out the season, he's done absolutely nothing. And they like Zonovan Knight. And I've talked a lot about Zonovan Knight. I think he looks really good. He looked really good last week, and that the opportunity when he came in that game. So I mean, if you look at James Robinson, I mean, he's pretty much kind of just been touchdown dependent. He hasn't done anything. The last time he played, even before that, was week 11. He only played 25% of the snaps, and he saw 7 carries in that game. He saw no targets whatsoever. So no, I do not expect James Robinson just to come in and take over the backfield. They could have done it last week when they had Michael Carter healthy. They didn't. And so they went Zonovan Knight. And so I still think Zonovan Knight is going to be the lead back here. But I think James Robinson mixes in a little bit. But James Robinson just has not looked very good this year. He's been really bad in pretty much every metric you look at for running backs this year. So I don't think that he is going to come in and take over any backfield. I mean, he's 48th in yards created per touch. He's 57th in evaded tackles. He's just been really, really bad so far to start this season. He's also 63rd in true yards per carry. So I don't think that's what's going to happen. Andrea, Damian Pierce or Samaje Perine? I'm going to go Perine here. Again, really close between these two, but I'm going to go with Samaje Perine. Game script, targets, everything that'll be there for Samaje Perine. So let's rock with Samaje Perine. Emilio, need 2 wide receivers and a flex, full PPR. Mike Evans, Higgins, Keenan Allen, Jeff Wilson, Monty, or Swift. Really worried about Mike Evans with Lattimore potentially playing. So I'm going to lock in. I think I agree. I think with the 2 wide receivers here, I'm going to go with T. Higgins and I'm going to go with Keenan Allen. I think both of them are in really good spots. Briefly talked about Keenan Allen already. Really want to attack the Raiders into the slot. That's really where they struggle the most in terms of wide receivers. They do a much better job on the outside perimeter wide receivers than they do against the slot. So I think Keenan Allen sets up in a great spot. Obviously, Jamar Chase is going to be back here for this game against the Bengals, but still a really good spot for T. Higgins. So I'm going to go T. Higgins, Keenan Allen, and then at flex, I'm going to lock in DeAndre Swift. If you want to go Monty, I think you can, but just understand that he is not the lead back as we all think he is. He had the 1 week a couple weeks ago where I think he had 80% of the snaps. Last week we saw Darrington Evans mix in. And he kind of played the Khalil Herbert role, and then you had now we have Justin Fields back and his potential to run. It just limits the ceiling for David Montgomery a little bit. Yes, it's a great matchup against Green Bay. But I just lean towards DeAndre Swift. If you want to go the safer route, I think that's probably Monty just because he's guaranteed to probably see 15 to 16, maybe 17 touches in the backfield in a good matchup. But it does worry me with Justin Fields because he takes away, his rushing equity and stuff like that. So I think that's why I would go Swift, and then I would go Higgins and Keenan Allen. If you want to go Monty, I get it. Let's see here. Pick 2: Mike Evans, Christian Watson, or Juju. I'm going to go with the latter two. Mike Evans just he hasn't seen any touchdown equity this year, which has been kind of weird for Mike Evans. He's usually a guy he's almost a lock for 10 plus touchdowns in his career. He's only seen 3 touchdowns, which is by far the lowest rate we've seen. You probably have to go back to 2017 when he only had 5 touchdowns that year. Sure, things can change. You still have some time, but only 3 touchdowns on the year, and that kind of limits the ceiling because he's not necessarily a high volume guy. You have to go all the way back to week 8, the last time you saw 5 or more receptions in a game. So in a full PPR, like he's not getting there. If he's not scoring touchdowns, it severely limits his ceiling. And so that's why for me, when the weeks when Chris Godwin was missing and kind of working his way back, he was seeing more volume, but it started to drop off a little bit the last 2 games where he's seen 6 and 9 targets. And then, like I said, if he's not scoring touchdowns, he just makes him a little bit less he makes him a lot more volatile. Where Christian Watson, I think, and Juju are just a little bit more secure. So I would go with the latter two here in this situation. Michael Brown, pick one. Kamara, Rashad White, Damian Pierce, Miles Sanders, or Pacheco, full PPR. I'm going to go with Kamara here. It does worry me, but his pass catching usage is so great, especially in a full PPR. Anything less than that, now you start to get a little bit more worried about a guy like Alvin Kamara. But I'm going to go with Alvin Kamara here over the other options that you have. Perry, flex two, Devonta Smith, Jamal Williams, Mostert, ETN, but he's banged up. It sounds like ETN is good. I mean, he got in practice this week. That was kind of the narrative all week that he was going to be good to go this week. That it was they were just being cautious with him last week. It is a good matchup against Detroit, not great matchup. Detroit has been better against opposing running backs as of late. Hopefully, they utilize him a little bit more in the passing game. That has been an area that he just hasn't really seen a lot of. It was frustrating last week to see Jermichael Hasty come in and get 5 receptions in that game. That is not something we've seen for Travis Etienne. And Travis Etienne, quite frankly, is a better pass catching running back than he is. So I will go with Travis Etienne here. And then the other running backs, or the other option I'm going to go with is Devonta Smith. Great matchup against Tennessee. It is a very consolidated target share between AJ Brown and Devonta Smith. We thought maybe some of these tight ends would come in and get some run. Jack Stoll or Cal Contra here for Philadelphia, but they've seen they have the two tight ends for the Eagles have seen 2 receptions for -4 yards over the last 2 games without Dallas Goedert. It is completely concentrated between the two, AJ Brown and Devonta Smith. And so I'm going to go with Devonta Smith here. He's in a really good spot as well. So I'm going to go with Devonta and ETN here as the 2 options that I would go with. And then Perry, once again, at tight end, we have Dulcich, Komet, Hurst, or Ingram. All very good options. So for me, I'm going to go with Hayden Hurst in this group. Once again, Chiefs game, Chiefs Bengals, highest total, 2 of the highest totals on the slate here. Hayden Hurst. Chiefs do struggle against opposing tight ends at times, so um, I'm going to go with Hurst, and then right below that, I'm going to go with Cole Kmet. Those would be the 2 guys that I would look at between these both of these options. No Darnell Mooney now for the Bears. It's really Chase Claypool and Cole Kmet. So those would be the 2 guys that I would look at, and I just slightly lean towards Hurst. Jacob, Pirine, White, Debo, Terry Pacheco, Olave, half point PPR. We got to start 3. So we're going to lock in Pirine. We're going to lock in Rashad White. And then I'm going to go with Terry McLaurin here. I have Debo Samuel a little bit lower than Terry McLaurin. So I'm going to go with those 3, Pirine, Rashad White, and Scary Terry. Rich, pick 2, please. Rashad White, Pirine, Damian Pierce, or Jamal Williams. I'm going to go with Pirine and Rashad White here. It is close between Damian Pierce and Rashad White. I just slightly lean towards Rashad White here as a better option this week. So I'm going to go with Rashad White and Samaje Pirine. And then where were we? Abraham, should I pick up Matt Collins and drop Boyd? I mean, it depends on the type of league you're in or how deep this league is. I don't really want to drop Tyler Boyd, but I think you can now with Jamar Chase back. Matt Collins is the kind of locked in number 2 wide receiver here. But I will say that we'll have to see it here. So maybe you might wait because it sounds like Hunter Renfrow could come off the IR here in the next couple of weeks. It's possible. Obviously, the Raiders really aren't playing for anything, so maybe they just shut him down for the rest of the year. But he is somebody that is due to come off the IR. Him and Waller both are getting close to that spot where they could both come back. I think it's next week. So I think it's close between those 2. Obviously, Tyler Boyd's in the better offense, but he is more of like the 3rd or 4th, maybe even the 5th option on some weeks. So I don't mind it if you want to try to take a shot on Matt Collins. Sit one of Deshaun Watson, Russ, or Heineke. I'm sitting Russ. Russ is cooked in my mind. I just think he's cooked. We went back to last year and we thought maybe it was just the injury and stuff like that happened. I just think that he's done. I don't think he's nearly the quarterback that he used to be, and that team is just an absolute mess. I want no part of Russell Wilson the rest of the season. There's no shot that dude's going to do anything the rest of the year, and so Yeah, I'm sitting Russ for sure. James, Tampa Bay or Jets defense? I'm gonna go with Tampa Bay here. Tampa Bay is it's the better spot against the Saints. We know Andy Dalton will make some dumb decisions sometimes and throw some bad interceptions. The Jets defense has been really good this year. They've been really consistent, a really easy option to get to. But I just slightly lean towards Tampa Bay here this week. James, Jacob, Chiefs or Philly D? I'm gonna go Philly. I'm not playing the Chiefs against the Bengals. Now, what I will say is obviously the Bengals offensive line could be a problem, but I just think Philly's in a better spot. The only thing that worries me about that game is it's going to be it's going to be a little bit gross, probably a little bit more slow pace, a little bit because these are two teams that do want to run the football. But I still like I lean towards Philadelphia over Kansas City. But if we want to hold on to the Chiefs defense because oh boy, does the Chiefs defense look really good after we get past this game. We get 2 games against Denver before the end of the season. They also get a game against Houston. So I'm holding the Chiefs defense if I can, but just for this week, I don't want to play them. Abraham, what about Ty Johnson? Do you think he'll be part of the running back mix and making it a 3-man running back? I think it's possible. Yeah, I think it is possible that it's going to be somewhat of a committee. I don't think it's going to be. I still think Zonovan Knight leads his backfield. I think Zonovan Knight probably sees 50 to 60% of the snaps. I think Ty Johnson played more last week out of they were blowing out the Bears, and so at that point, I think they kind of pulled the reins off a little bit, gave Ty Johnson a little bit of run. I do think Ty Johnson is going to see work, but I don't think it's going to. I think if I was going to look at it, I would look at Zonovan Knight as the lead back. Like I said, 50, 60% of the snaps. You probably get Ty Johnson in maybe 20% of the snaps, and then maybe the rest go to James Robinson there. So that's kind of the way that I would kind of take a look at it. J2, nice. Start Christian Watson at flex or ETN. Oh boy. I like both of those options today. I think ETN is probably the way I'm going to go, and that's mainly because of game script, or that's mainly because of opportunity. We know Travis Etienne, as long as he's healthy, which all accounts that he is that he's going to see probably 18, 20 touches, where Christian Watson is still a little boom or bust, right? He continues to score all these touchdowns. It feels very much like Will Fuller. We talked about this earlier in the week, where kind of Will Fuller a few years ago with Houston did this, where he scored like 9 touchdowns on some ridiculous low amount of targets. And eventually things are going to stop. Now, I think Christian Watson's a better player than Will Fuller is. And I think some of this is just regression that's going to hit. But I also think he could see more targets and more receptions and more receiving yards, which is going to level it out a little bit for one of it because he's not going to score, a touchdown or two every single game. It's just not going to happen. But I would just slightly lean towards ETN, though I do like Christian Watson. King Marcelo, sup, bro? Sup, King? Need 3 receivers and 1 flex. Debo, not sure if he's playing. Godwin, Pickens, Peoples Jones, Josh Palmer, or Pacheco. So we're going to lock in Chris Godwin. Really like him against the Saints. And then I'm going to go with Pickens as the other receiver. I think he's in a good spot. And then between the rest of them, I'm going to lean towards Josh Palmer. And this one between him and Debo, just because Debo dealing with this injury, I still think Debo's expected to play. Sounds like he should play, but you have the ability to make a lot of those guys you have play at the 3 o'clock time slot, so it doesn't really matter. But I still lean towards Josh Palmer. I think they're very close. I have them very close in the rankings for me this week, but I slightly lean towards Josh Palmer. Brandon rocking with us on Facebook. What's up, Brandon? Hope you're doing well. Pacheco or Jeff Wilson Jr. I'm going to go with Pacheco here. It does worry me with this run defense. The 49ers defense has been really good, especially their front. And we have to also talk about that the Dolphins are going to be missing both of their starting tackles are going to be out. Teron Armstead is not playing. So they're missing their starting tackles against a really, really good 49ers front. I just don't want to mess with any of the running backs out of the backfield. That's possible. Maybe he sees some targets that kind of levels it out a little bit. But Raheem Mostert's also back this week. So there's just a lot of things that I'm going to go with Isaiah Pacheco here instead of leaning on one of the Dolphins wide receiver or running backs. All right. Walito, appreciate you with the $5 super holler. Conklin or Harrison Bryant without Njoku? This is a good question too, because I think both of these. I think Harrison Bryant kind of goes under overlooked a little bit this week without David Njoku. Um, in terms of just the pure matchup, though, I do think that this. Let me see. So Minnesota has struggled to stop tight ends this year. Man, this damn son. Um, uh, the Vikings are worse against tight ends than are the Houston Texans. It's not incredibly far off, but so I'm going to go with Tyler Conklin here, and just a little bit better game script, better matchup, better opportunity here, and just the way this game plays out. Like I said, I could see this Cleveland game being a little bit more of a run funnel this week between both of these two teams that really want to run the football, and so I'm going to go with Tyler Conklin here against the Minnesota Vikings. Let's see. Where are we at next? Truth. I don't have any other options in my flex for the Debo question, so I'll go Debo over Gus, like you suggested. 9 is on waiver. Should I pick him up, put him in the flex? If he's out there, actually, I don't mind that. He's a safer option. I do think Debo's going to play, but like with no other options that are sitting out there on waivers. And I was trying to think, excuse me, is there anybody on the Sunday night game that you possibly could go with? Like maybe a Noah Brown, but that's kind of like really thin. But I do know Michael Gallup was kind of questionable heading into this week. Um, Noah Brown could possibly be, but that feels really thin. And then in the Tampa Bay the Saints game, like that's kind of the same thing. You're really stretching it to be able to get to one of those guys. If Zonovan Knight's sitting out there, I like him enough that I think you could just go ahead and do that. So I think that's the way I would go because I like Zonovan Knight more than Gus Edwards. And I think Zonovan Knight is probably their best option as a pass catcher out of this backfield too. Excuse me, out of the backfield. He's a really good pass catcher. He was a really good pass catcher at NC State. And so I think I would go Zonovan Knight here in that situation just because of the pure. I mean, anything can happen here with Debo. It's possible we get to 2 o'clock and they decide just to rule him out. All those things are on the table, and or maybe he's limited. They're not going to use him as much. So I think I would just go Zonovan Knight just because of the pure uncertainty with you having a decent enough option there. James, any chance Odell Beckham signs with any team? Yeah, he's going to sign with the team, but I don't think he's going to be fantasy relevant at all. It's going to take him a long time to get acclimated with any offense and to really get himself going. He hasn't played all year. Obviously, he's been out. We're already into week 13, but he's not going to sign this week. So you're looking at week 14 at best, and then he's not going to play week 14. So you're looking at the very least week 15 or 16 that he might be available. I think a lot of teams that he signs with, it's likely more of a chance that he kind of sits, maybe gets slightly worked up towards the last couple of weeks of the season, and you get him ready for the actual NFL playoffs. So he's not somebody that is on my fantasy radar at all this year. I don't think you even need to worry about him. True Teller, David Njoku is out for me. So Cole Kmet, Harrison Bryant, or Evan Ingram. I'm going to go Cole Kmet here between these three options. Again, I do kind of like Harrison Bryant. Evan Ingram, I think, is also kind of a sneaky option. He's kind of fallen off. He's not really as much involved in this offense as he was earlier in the year. And so I'm just going to go Cole Kmet here without Darnell Mooney. It's pretty thin on who they can really throw the ball to. And he's been seeing some decent amount of targets here. And I think it just bodes better for him, with having Justin Fields back as well. So I'm going to go Cole Kmet. EM10, start Gus or Rachaad White. I'm going to go Rachaad White. We've already talked a lot about Rachaad White, talked about Gus Edwards. I like Rachaad White. I think he continues to operate as the lead back. You're probably looking at 55-60% of the opportunities, though, now with Leonard Fournette back. But that's still much more than you can say about Gus Edwards. So I'm going to go with Rachaad White. Laura and Jim Cooperman at the flex and PPR. Lazard, Hasty, DeAndre Carter, or DJ Chark. Those are all really sneaky options this week, especially DJ Chark and DeAndre Carter. But I'm going to go with Lazard here in this matchup against Chicago. Sets up really nicely for Allen Lazard and Christian Watson. So I'm going to go Lazard. 1KC dot. Should I start Joshua Palmer or Zay Jones, or should I start Derek Carr, Jimmy G? I'm going to go with Palmer here over Zay Jones, and then I'm going to go with Jimmy G over Derek Carr. I think it's a lot closer between that last one between those two, but I just slightly prefer the game script here, not necessarily game script, but matchup here against Miami. Miami has really struggled to stop opposing quarterbacks. They rank in the bottom half of the league in terms of allowing points to opposing quarterbacks. Their pass DVOA has been really bad as well. So, um, yeah, I would go with Jimmy G here in this matchup against the Dolphins. The Dolphins rank 25th in pass DVOA on the year. So I would go with them. And then let's see, EM10, 49. Oh, rest of season or Bills defense. I'm going to go 49ers. They're getting healthier on that defense. They have looked really good as of late. And then the Bills, without Von Miller, probably for at least the next three weeks, I think limits them a little bit. And their matchups aren't as good. I mean, I know they still have a matchup against Cincinnati. They still have to play the Dolphins another time. And so I just lean towards the 49ers. I think they're in a better spot. Should I start Zeke or Perrine or Samaje Perine, Bengals running back? I'm gonna go with Perine. Really like Samaje Perine. Talked about him a lot already. He's the pass catching running back. Zeke is definitely in a committee still with Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard is now, in my mind, the lead back there in front of Zeke. Zeke is still going to get opportunities for sure. I think both of them, as much as this team likes to rotate these running backs, it's probably a low end RB2, a high end RB3 every week. Where I think this matchup for Perine could be a top 15 option this week. So I really like Samaje Perine here. Next up, we have Terrell. Need one running back, flex, Gus Pacheco, Zonovan Knight, Cortland Sutton, or Traylon Burks. So at running back, I'm going to go with Isaiah Pacheco. And then the flex, that's an interesting one between Sutton and Burks. I'm going to go with Burks over Cortland Sutton. I don't really want to play anybody that's attached to, because I feel like his touchdown equity is so low. His touchdown upside is so low playing with Russ. And now Jerry Judy is actually expected to return today. And so if Jerry Judy comes back as well, that just really lowers the ceiling in terms of targets as well. So I'm gonna go with Burks here. I'm gonna go with Traylon Burks and Isaiah Pacheco. Mordenheim won. Ayuk or Christian Watson and Kamara or White half point PPR. So that one I'm going to go with Kamara. And then the wide receiver question, I'm going to go with Brandon Ayuk. Man, I like both those. I really do like both those. I wish you could play both. Is there any shot you can play both here? Or what other wide receivers are you starting? Just curious. Glock, Glock guy, 56. Watson or Jimmy G? I'm going to go with Sean Watson. Um, Again, we've talked about it. He's volatile. Jimmy G is probably the safer option. But with Deshaun Watson, he also brings some rushing upside as well that we could see here. Just with him, I do think there's a scenario where they throw the ball a little bit more than they really want because trying to kind of knock off some of this rust here from Deshaun Watson, kind of get him going a little bit. It is a decent matchup against Houston. Though I will say Houston's actually been better against the pass than they have against the run. But some of that's also just because of teams that have just been able to, exert their will against their run defense and just don't really have to open up the offense as much. But I think Deshaun Watson, I think, is the ceiling play where Jimmy Garoppolo is the floor play. So I do have them relatively close in my rankings. I have Deshaun Watson at 14, and I have Jimmy G at 16. So it is close between both of those guys, but I just slightly lean towards the other one. True Teller, thanks for answering all my questions. No problem. Hope you have a great day and great day at fantasy. I did too. Hope everybody has a great day. Hope everybody crushes it this week at fantasy football. That's what we're here for. That's what we're trying to do. And so, yeah, like I said, we're only a few weeks away from the fantasy playoffs starting. So let's win that money. Brunel Jacobs. Who should I start in the flex? Chris Olave, Aaron Jones, or David Pierce? We're going Aaron Jones here. Aaron Jones is in a terrific spot against Chicago. Chicago's run defense is really bad. And so they are 28th in rush DVOA on the year. Aaron Jones has been a solid solid RB1. I have Aaron Jones ranked 5th overall this week among running backs, we're 100% going Aaron Jones in a full PPR. Must win this week, Abraham. So what do you think of this lineup? Dak, Najee, Knight, Terry, Justin Jefferson, Patty Fry, Jacobs, Bench, Pittman, Sanders, Boyd, Sutton, Kirk. Abraham, I'm playing Christian Kirk over Scary Terry. As long as that's Christian Kirk, I'm assuming. As long as it's not Kirk Cousins. I mean, you asked that question earlier, so I'm assuming yeah, I'm assuming that's Kirk Cousins, not Christian Kirk. Yeah, okay. So no, not so we're not worried about that. But yeah, I mean, I think you pray that Josh Jacobs plays because it's such a good matchup against the Chargers. The Chargers are so bad against the run, and we just saw what he did last week. I mean, I'm not expecting that monster performance again, but he still easily should be able to put up 100 plus yards and a couple touchdowns in this matchup. So I think Josh Jacobs plays. We pray that he does because that's kind of the key here for the team that you're running. So well, good luck, Abraham. Let's get that dub, and I expect to see you here next week so we can win week 14. Crab Gravy. Crab Gravy, what is up, man? Love that name every single time I see it. Olave or Burks? This one I'm going to go with. Let me see. This one I'm gonna go with Chris Olave. I have him just a little bit ahead of Traylon Burks this week. Traylon Burks is just a little bit lower. So I'm going to go with Chris Olave, where I have Chris Olave right now at wide receiver 24, and I have Traylon Burks at wide receiver 28 this week. So, yeah, give me Olave here in this matchup. Okay, Chris Godwin's the other one. Okay, now I see why you can't. Yeah, it's Chris Godwin. You're playing Chris Godwin for sure. So, yeah, that makes sense. Cade, Tua, or Fields? This one's going to be Tua. It does worry me that they are missing their starting offensive tackles. That is clearly a problem against this defense, but they have enough weapons with Tyreek and Jalen Waddle to get this done. You can throw on the 49ers. I think that especially with Travarius Ward, who really struggles with the deep ball at times, it can get beat deep. So I think sets up for a pretty good spot here for Tua and his pass or in the pass catcher. So I'm going to go with Tua here. You know what? Actually, let me put it. I'm going to put it this way. I think Justin Fields is a higher ceiling than the two of these guys. Um, if you want to go with Tua or if you want to go with Justin Fields, I think you can do that. There is the concern with the injury and all that stuff. I've already talked about that. I don't think it's as big a concern as I think it is. But if you were just looking for straight ceiling here and trying to, and you I would go with Justin Fields. If not, I think Tua would be the other option, but I'm a little bit lower on Tua. I do think Tua's in a good spot, but the more I think about it, I think I'm going to go with Justin. I would go with Justin Fields here. It's just hard to surpass somebody like Justin Fields whenever. I mean, if you have to go all the way back to week 4 that he wasn't a top 10 quarterback. He's finished his QB 8, 5, 5, 1, 1, and 7 over that span. So his ceiling is so damn high. I think I would just go Justin Fields there. So I had to think that one through a little bit. So 215 Eagles, Fournette, Rashad White, Pacheco, Latavius Murray start one. We're gonna go with Rashad White here. I've already talked about this game a ton and both in this situation a ton, but it would be Rashad White. Cole Pierce, not a lineup question, but should I trade CMC and Jamal Williams for Eckler? Yes, I would. It's just Eckler has been like a wide receiver 1 and an RB1 all wrapped together. The man has a 22% target share in this backfield. He also is on pace to break Christian McCaffrey's record for the most targets in a season with over 140 targets. He just sees such a ridiculous amount of targets every single week. Saw 15 of them last week. It's really hard to avoid not loving Austin Eckler. He just provides such a strong ceiling because of his usage in the passing game. That yes, and CMC. We have some of these reports coming out about his knee tendonitis that he's dealing with. Though they said he should be good to go. And then, like I said, Jamal Williams is just more of a touchdown or bust type guy. So yes, I'm going to take this trade, and I want Austin Eckler. Paris Campbell or Chris Moore. That's where we're at. That's where we're at. Where we are at. With it. So it's not Chris Moore. I know that they're going to be missing Brandon Cooks, but it's not going to be Chris Moore for me. It's going to be Paris Campbell. We've seen multiple weeks with Matt Ryan that Paris Campbell can get peppered with targets, see 10 plus targets. So I think Paris Campbell has the higher ceiling between both of these guys. Same question. HG, pick two wide receivers, Allen, Kirk, or Wilson. Pick one flex. Okay, so wide receivers, I'm gonna go. Ooh, oh man. I'm gonna go with Christian Kirk, and I'm assuming that is Garrett Wilson, and I'm gonna go with Garrett Wilson. I'm surprised we haven't had more Garrett Wilson questions. I have Garrett Wilson ranked wide receiver 9 on the week. I absolutely love Garrett Wilson this week. I think he's a top 10 wide receiver this week. Great matchup against Minnesota. Minnesota struggles against opposing wide receivers. So I'm going to go with Garrett Wilson as long as I'm assuming that's Garrett Wilson. Um, so yes, I'm going to go Christian Kirk and Garrett Wilson, and then the flex, I'm going to go with Aaron Jones. I already talked about Aaron Jones. Terrific matchup today. Start 2, Graham, Najee, DeAndre Swift, Pacheco, or Gibson. Oh man, it's not Gibson. Trying to see if there's any news. Make sure I'm not missing anything. Yeah, Adam Schefter just tweeted Josh Jacobs is expected to play today, so that is good news that we're getting that news already now. Active, James Williams, Jerry Judy, Cortland Sutton, Zay Jones, Antonio Gibson, Najee Harris, Jeffrey Simmons, and then inactive, Chase Youngs, Rex Burkhead, Robert Quinn, and Michael Carter. I am curious how that's going to affect Damian Pierce. I know they brought in Benjamin, but if that's going to increase the volume or opportunity for Damian Pierce with Rex Burkhead out, I think that's an interesting spot. But back to this question. So now we know Najee Harris is 100% playing. He's active. I'm going to go Najee Harris and I'm going to go DeAndre Swift here as the two options here. Um, just better matchups, better game scripts, not game script, better matchups, and I think better situation. I would love to say Pacheco. I really would. But just Andy Reid sometimes can just do really dumb shit. And I mean, it wouldn't surprise me one bit if Isaiah Pacheco only saw 10 carries, but he could also see 20. Like Andy Reid, if you allow him, if he's in a spot where he can just throw the ball the whole time, that is exactly what he's going to do. The Chiefs are number one in passer rate over expected on the year. They just don't really commit, especially once they get to the red zone. They're one of the top teams in terms of red zone pass attempts on the year too. I like Pacheco, but just with the other guys you have, I think that's the way I would go. Where are we at? 215. Yep. Jacobs in today. Yep. Jeff Wilson or Gibby, or drop Gibby for Brian Robinson. That's tough. I'm not playing Jeff Wilson, but if you could drop Gibson for Brian Robinson, as much as I will say the pass catching usage that he saw recently, especially last week, was encouraging. Gibson could be a little bit, and it is a really good matchup today against the Giants. I think I would. I think I would drop Gibson for Brian Robinson, as much as I hate doing that. Unless you have another option that you could drop instead of having to do it. Because I still think Gibson is going to provide on most weeks, like pass catching volume, because that's kind of what he's been. But surprisingly, we saw a decent amount of targets last week for Brian Robinson. And Brian Robinson had his best game of the year. And maybe Brian Robinson started to figure everything out. He's starting to come into his own because for most of the year, he was really, really inefficient. And it was just getting there off just some volume. But maybe we're starting to see the tide turn a little bit. So, yes, I think you can pick up Brian Robinson. Emmanuel, happy to see you in here once again. Thanks for your dedication each week. Thanks to you for rocking with us every week. I do appreciate everybody's support and everybody being here this year. It has been awesome. We continue to grow at a pretty strong pace. It's just really just me and Cody here now, holding the load down. And so I appreciate it. And I appreciate everybody that's in here with us every week. It's always good to see the same familiar faces every single week. So we couldn't do it without you guys. So I know there's a lot of bigger channels out there than we are, but the thing is with them, you're never going to get a response. My goal, I don't care how big we get, is to always answer every single question we possibly can, and because we wouldn't exist without you guys. So there's a lot of other options. So we appreciate you guys rocking with us. So 12 team full PPR, need one flex. I'm guessing that's supposed to be P Ryan. Sanders or Jamal Williams. We're going P Ryan for sure. Love P Ryan. And then Conklin or Komet. I'm going to lean towards Conklin, but it is close between Conklin and Komet. I think both of them are really close. I think both of them are in decent spots this week. Komet probably has a little bit higher shot of being in a better, a little bit more higher volume, just because of it's really him and Chase Claypool. Where Conklin's still going to have to deal with Garrett Wilson and Elijah Moore and Corey Davis. But I think the touchdown volume is going to be higher, the higher touchdown equity. But so I think it's close between these two. So yeah, I think I would slightly lean that way. Trey, full PPR, start two. ETN, Jeff Wilson, Rachaad White, Lenny, or Devonta Smith. Thanks and good luck this week. Same to you, Trey. So we're going to go with Travis Etienne. And I'm going to go Devonta Smith here. It's really close between Rachaad White, but I'm going to go with ETN and Devonta Smith here in this matchup against the Titans. But it is really close. I'm sad that we can't play Rachaad White, but I just think he's not in as good of a spot as ETN or Devonta Smith is. Trey, also Tua or Dak. This is going to be Tua for me. I like Tua a little bit more than Dak this week. Matt Johnson, Swift or P. Ryan? I'm going to go with P. Ryan here. Do you like Christian Watson over Garrett Wilson? I do not. I have Garrett Wilson at wide receiver 9 this week, where I have Christian Watson as a low end wide receiver 2. So yes, I love Garrett Wilson this week. What player is going nuclear today? Man. I'm going to go with Tyreek Hill here. I think this sets up to be an explosion spot for Tyreek Hill. We haven't really seen he's put up a lot of really good weeks, but we haven't really seen that typical Tyreek Hill. You probably all the way back to week 2 where he scored 40. But I mean, he could easily score 50 points, I think, and I really like Tyreek Hill. I think this sets up very nicely for him, and so I think I think that's low hanging fruit. If you want it a little bit more, let me see, maybe a little bit more spicier. I'm not going to say he's going to go nuclear, but I'm going to say a guy that I think most people are overlooking this week that could end up being a really good play, that could end up being a top waiver ad this week is Sky Moore. I really like Sky Moore today. I know we're not talking about DFS, but at DFS, I'm playing a ton of Sky Moore. He's seen 6 or more targets in each of the last 2 games. He's starting to become more involved in this offense. Hardman is still out. Kadarius Toney is still out. MBS hasn't played very well. I really like Sky Moore as an option. And so I think Sky Moore can end up scoring 15 plus fantasy points today. And this could be his real breakout game today against the Bengals. So I like Sky Moore as well as kind of a sneakier option. Ronnie, what's good, Kev? What is good, Ronnie? Pickens or Bam Knight for the flex full PPR? Let's go with George Pickens here on this one. Just like him a little bit more. Really good matchup. So let's go George Pickens. And then at quarterback, we are going to go with Lamar or Tua. I'm going to go with Lamar here on this one just because of his rushing upside. So, yeah, I'm going to go Lamar here on this one. Chris Walters, do you like Ravens D versus Broncos or Jets D versus Vikes? I'm going to go with the Ravens here. I think both of them are decent options this week, but I just prefer really any defense that's going to go up against the Broncos because the Broncos offense is so inept. And so I'm going to go with Baltimore here in that spot. Bo, Godwin or Ken Walker, full PPR. And do you think Jacobs will play? Yes. Adam Schefter just tweeted out like 10 minutes ago, if even that long ago, that Josh Jacobs is expected to play, which I figured that he was going to play. But I would expect a lot more moving forward of him not practicing much throughout the week, and he just kind of plays on game day. I don't think they really need to push him as that much through the week, so I think that could be something we see. But man, this is Bo. We can't play both of these guys. Like, what running backs do you have? Because I really like Ken Walker, and especially without a lot of the pieces that the Rams are going to be missing on this defense, it's going to really hurt them. But I don't want to sit Godwin either. But I'm gonna go with Ken Walker. I'm gonna play him even in a full PPR, especially because one nugget that people may overlook is Travis Homer is out this week, which is kind of their pass catching guy that they utilize there. So, I mean, we can see Ken Walker see 6 or 7 targets here in this game as well. It's possible. This really depends on game script. So, I'm going to go with Ken Walker here over Godwin, but that really hurts my soul to have to sit Ken Walker. And on this one, or to sit Godwin, I mean, Tua or Fields. I'm going to go with Fields on this one. We've kind of talked through this one already. I do like Tua, but he is missing his starting tackles, so that could end up being a problem against this 49er front. I just like Fields more just because of his ceiling has been great. Who do you think is safer between Ayuk and Lockett? I think Ayuk's safer, but I think Lockett probably has the higher ceiling. The the Rams really struggle uh, against wide receivers like Tyler Lockett, and the only thing that would worry me with Tyler Lockett is just the overall volume because of how bad the Rams offense is going to be. I mean, they have nobody. I mean, they literally had nobody. They went back to John Wolford, which is the reason why Kyron Williams makes so much sense this week as like kind of another decent option in PPR formats if people are searching, because Kyron Williams is probably could see like a massive amount of targets today against the Seattle defense. So I just don't love anybody from there, but I think Tyler Lockett has the higher ceiling, but Ayuk has a safer floor. So I do think Brandon Ayuk is a little bit safer. CHB, Pacheco, Kyron, or Mostert. I just talked about that. I think if it's full PPR CHB, I think I might go Kyron. Like I just talked about that. Like I think there's really a shot here. He sees a lot of targets. They don't really have anybody else to throw the ball to. They're likely going to be trailing. If it's long as it's full PPR, like I know that he's going to see those opportunities where Pacheco is going to be volatile, and then I'm not playing Mostert. No way. And so it comes down to those two. And I slightly lean towards Kyron. I just think we saw him last week, played 70% of the snaps. Seattle does really struggle against opposing running backs too. And so, yeah, I think I would go Kyron here. Richard Hernandez Standard League, which doesn't really matter for quarterbacks too much. Gino or Cousins? I'm gonna go with Gino here in this spot with Cousins. Kirk Cousins worries me a little bit against this Jets defense because that's gonna be a good matchup to follow today because Sauce Gardner going against Justin Jefferson. Uh, they're out their perimeter corners have been really well. You want to attack them in the slot. So I just lean towards Gino, just a little bit better matchup, though it does worry me with game script. And if they can, they could end up running the ball 35 times today. They don't really open the offense up as much. So I think Cousins has the higher ceiling, where I think Gino maybe has a little bit safer of a floor. Matt Johnson, Pickens, or Christian Watson. I'm going to go Pickens. We've already had this one. It is close. I really do like both those options today, but I lean towards Pickens. TX, Philly D or Texans. This is Philly. One running back league. I have Jacobs. Okay, no, that makes sense. And Jacobs has been a stud, which I don't know of anybody that was actually on Jacobs before the year started. I think everybody had the same view, and that's one of the things that we all got wrong heading into this year was Josh Jacobs. But happy to see it. Contract year, man. Contract year never fails. He has crushed it this year. He has been arguably one of the best running backs in the league, if not the best running back in the league this year, just in terms of consistency, week to week opportunity. He's played really, really well. And this class next year for running backs is going to be wild because there is a ton of free agent running backs. Plus, this NFL draft, this class looks really good too. So we're going to see a lot of movement with running backs this year because you have Josh Jacobs that's a free agent, David Montgomery's a free agent, Saquon Barkley's a free agent, Tony Pollard is a free agent. I know I'm forgetting Miles Sanders is a free agent. I'm sure I'm missing a couple of more that's not coming to me on the top of my head. It's gonna be weird. Uh, with all the running backs, and then with the draft class, you have obviously Bijan Robinson, who's going to be probably a top 15 in the pick in the NFL draft. Which, as much as I hate that, that if any NFL team taking running back that early, he's going to go that high. Like when calling him like Saquon Barkley in terms of prospect, isn't hyperbole. Um, like that's how good this man is. And so you have him and a bunch of other guys. Anyways, we're not talking about that right now. I do get excited for offseason stuff and the draft. So we'll be getting into a lot of that. So if you guys are into draft, the NFL draft, we will be covering that extensively through all the prospects and everything as we get through the seasons over with. So, anyways, TX, who to bench, Debo, Olave, or P Ryan, half point PPR. I'm gonna bench Debo here. I just think there's a lot of question marks with him dealing with a little bit of an injury. It's really close between Debo and Olave, but at least with Olave, he's their wide receiver one, unquestioned. So while it's not great at times with Andy Dalton for sure, I don't know why they don't switch away from Andy Dalton, but whatever. Not worth the conversation for another day. So I think I would sit Debo here in this situation. Kamara or Pierce? I'm gonna go Kamara. Legendary pest control. The only way you feel warm and is to sit in the sun during the cold KC days. That is true. Yeah. Raheel. Hope I pronounced that correctly. One running back and one flex. P. Ryan, Brian Robinson, Zay Jones, or Josh Palmer. The running back is going to be P. Ryan, and then the flex, I'm going to go with. Man, this is tough. I'm going to go with Brian Robinson against the Giants. I hate sitting Josh Palmer with all the opportunity that he sees, but I just think it makes a little bit more sense to go P. Ryan here and then Brian Robinson and a really good matchup against the Giants defense. Bo, I have a question. Chris Godwin has been on fire and Ken Walker hasn't been doing so good. So what do you think? Yeah, I already talked about it with this one. We've already answered it, but I think when I look at this, so with Ken Walker, like I said, it's just game script is going to be there for sure for them. We're not worried about the Rams, getting out some big lead or anything like that. That would really make Ken Walker or more volatile. Um, and then once you look at kind of the matchup here with them, um, Aaron Donald being out, I think is a massive blow to that defensive line. And so I can't sit Ken Walker. I mean, I like Chris Godwin a lot, but I just think that Ken Walker, and especially like we already talked about, Travis Homer is going to be out, so that leads him more to being the pass catching running back. He's going to see all of the volume. You're talking about a guy who's probably going to see 20 plus touches today, if not more, in this backfield. He is a super explosive running back, so he's somebody that can rip off a 60-yard touchdown. So where Chris Godwin gets there on especially volume, and yes, Chris Godwin has definitely looked a lot better and seen a lot more volume for sure. That is also a so I just think with everything that's lined up, especially with Aaron Donald being out and how essential he is for that entire defensive line. Now the offensive line doesn't have to commit multiple pieces trying to stop Aaron Donald or anything like that. I just think it opens up Ken Walker and makes Ken Walker a really good play today. So I get it. I would love to play Chris Godwin too, but I just lean towards Ken Walker. Philly or Cleveland? I'm gonna go with Cleveland on that one. Contract year was the only positive thought they were gonna throw. Yeah, yeah. I agree. I just wasn't as high, and especially if you go back and you remember like preseason, like if you remember Josh Jacobs played in like the Hall of Fame game, which is kind of what really started thing when people were worried about Josh Jacobs. And then you had Josh McDaniels, who comes from the Bill Belichick tree, where they are very much a committee type off, or where this could be a complete committee. I just don't think people saw Josh Jacobs in that light. And Josh Jacobs, to be fair, has never had anything close to this type of season. He's always been like a borderline RB1, but it's always been more of a back end RB1. He's been like a safe option. He'll have some good weeks, but for the most part, like he's never been what he's doing this year. Like, so this is a complete outlier season. And the thing is, people are going to overdraft Josh Jacobs next year, and it's going to end up being a mistake. But again, this isn't a knock against Josh Jacobs. I think Josh Jacobs is a good running back. He's not as good as what he's playing. But hey, we'll take it for sure. Porter, Juju or Peoples Jones? This is Juju all day. All day. Carnitas, JC, Juju Smith Schuster, or Miles Sanders for flex. Standard. I'm gonna go Juju Smith Schuster here on this one. Really bad matchup for Miles Sanders against Tennessee. Tennessee has been really, really good against opposing running backs. They are number one in rush DVOA. I believe they allow the lowest or the second lowest to opposing running backs on the season, or no, excuse me, the third lowest, but still really, they've just done a really good job. They've only allowed 2 rushing touchdowns on the season, so I'm gonna go with Juju here, even in a standard. I tend to usually lean more towards running backs in a standard league, but this week I'm gonna go just based off matchup. I'm gonna go Juju Smith-Schuster. Matt is Harrison Bryant worth playing? Yeah, I think he's worth playing. I just don't know what volume is going to look like, and we also have to see how things are going to play out now with Deshaun Watson. Obviously, you know Jacoby Brissett. Jacoby Brissett tends to lean more on tight ends than what Deshaun Watson does, but it's kind of a limited opportunity too who you're going to get the ball to. So I do think Harrison Bryant is definitely in play. Taylor or Jerick McKinnon? I mean, if that's Jonathan Taylor Porter, I'm assuming it is. I can't think of anybody else it would be. It's 100% Jonathan Taylor. Like, it's not even we're not even a conversation. It's all day Jonathan Taylor, as which I'm assuming who that is. So I like McKinnon as kind of a low end flex, but it's it's Taylor. Dez, Gino or Herbert? This is Herbert. Love Herbert this week against this defense, against against the Raiders, excuse me, in this matchup. I think they have the second or third highest team total as well on this slate of games today. So it's Justin Herbert, and it's really not even close. Bo, thank you. Have an amazing day. You as well. Let's get some dubs this week, boys and girls. Half point PPR, 1 flex, 1 wide receiver. Deontay, Hunt, Dylan, Nico Collins. I'm going to go with Nico Collins at wide receiver. And then at flex, I'm going to go with AJ Dillon. Mainly not because of just what he did last week, but I also think that in a matchup against Chicago, especially if they build an elite, you could definitely see them kind of switch to AJ Dillon. AJ Dillon looked pretty good last week as well. So I'm going to go AJ Dillon. I just can't trust Kareem Hunt. And he would be much more of an option, like if you thought the Texans were going to get up to a quick lead or something like that. So, yeah, that's the direction I'm going to go. And with Nico Collins, no Brandon Cooks is only better news for Nico Collins. So, which he's already been kind of the wide receiver one, anyways, lately. Ball glove blueprint, PPR league, Zonovan Knight, Brian Robinson, Rachaad White. Man, I really like. I'm going to go with Brian Robinson here on this one. It's just really close between the two of them. Between Brian Robinson and Rachaad White. It does worry me a little bit with not worry me, but the only thing that I would like when I think about this Bucks offense is them losing Tristan Wirfs is going to be a big deal for the next 3 or 4 weeks. Their offensive line is already really banged up, so asking them to be able to hold up against a pretty decent Saints, defensive front, I think it's gonna be tough. And he's really gonna have to get there through passing volume. I don't have some of those concerns with Brian Robinson. I still like Rachaad White quite a bit, but I think I would lean towards Brian Robinson, a really good matchup against the Giants on that one. This one, D'Lo, Lamar, or Justin Fields. I'm going to go Justin Fields with this one. I think one's in a better matchup, similar type of options. Neither one of them are going to throw the ball a lot, and both of them want to run the ball. So I'm just going to go with Justin Fields here on that one. Mitch, Jeff Wilson, or Dameon Pierce. I'm going Dameon Pierce. I don't really want to play Jeff Wilson. Talked about this quite a bit. Yep, like you said, Dolphins are down 2 offensive linemen, first best front team in the league, and Pierce has been a bum. facing a bottom two run defense. Yeah, it's going to be Dameon Pierce. I mean, Pierce hasn't been a bum. First of all, you watch your mouth, Mitch. He has not been a bum. It's been the Texans have been terrible. It's not Dameon Pierce's fault. It is the Texans' fault because the Texans' offense has been so bad and their defense has been so bad. It has not been Dameon Pierce's fault. The numbers have looked really good for Dameon Pierce. It has been the efficiency metrics. Everything else is there for Dameon Pierce. It is the Houston Texans are so bad that it puts Dameon Pierce in a bad spot. There were multiple opportunities last week for Dameon Pierce, even just that was wide open and what could have just been a dump off that Kyle Allen overthrew Dameon Pierce. Like it's not Dameon Pierce. It is just the system that he's in. But so as long as he's in a positive game script today, and like we've talked about, he gets one of the best matchups you can get. I think Dameon Pierce is in a great spot. Jeff Wilson, I can't say the same for. So yeah, I'm gonna go Dameon Pierce. If Jacobs doesn't go wild, you star Abdullah and what? Standards. Well, we don't have to worry about that because Josh Jacobs is expected to play. So TX Justin Herbert or Fields. This one I'm gonna go with Herbert. Like him more on this one for sure. Porter, Garrett Wilson, or Quez Watkins. Are you picking up Porter? If Devonta Smith is sitting out there, if that's what you're saying, you drop Quez Watkins for Devonta Smith all day. But we're still going to go with Garrett Wilson on that. TX, we're going to go with Rashad White here on this one. The last 2 weeks, he's averaging 1 yard a carry and -6 yards before contact. Yeah, because their offensive line has been not good, and they're in general they've been terrible. They've gotten down 30-0 last week. To before that happened, and um, I don't know what you can't expect him to do a whole lot. Like it hasn't been Dameon Pierce. It's been their offensive line is bad. It's been game script. It's been everything else there for him. On the season, he's still been one of the more efficient running. Actually, I just talked about him. I got it right here. Um, let's see really quickly before we wrap this thing up. Let me find this really quickly. There it is. Okay, so Dameon Pierce, he is on the season. Uh he's eighth in yards after contact per attempt, and he's third in missed tackles forced. And that has been and over the last 10 weeks, over the last 4 weeks, it has looked the same. Now, over the last 4 weeks, he's averaging 9.5 fantasy points per game. But the problem is, like I said, you're talking about a team that has just been absolutely obliterated every single week. They have no offense. I still think Dameon Pierce is a very good running back, but he's a very good running back stuck in one of the worst situations you possibly could ask for anybody. And when your quarterback can't even hit somebody on a dump off that is 4 or 5 yards away from you, and you overthrow him, there's not much he can really do here. I don't think this is a Dameon Pierce problem. This is a Houston Texans problem, but maybe it's something we should have always expected because we knew Houston was going to be so bad. Um, but this is a spot to turn the ship. Like we said, the Cleveland allows the second most fantasy points to running backs. They allow the sixth most rushing yards and the second most rushing touchdowns. So great matchup. He's volatile for sure, though. That is definitely something that you could definitely say, and I would agree on that. James, appreciate the super chat. Pick two: Dameon Pierce, Pickens, Garrett Wilson, Christian Watson. So here you have enough options here to choose, right? I'm not going to play Dameon Pierce in this situation. I'm going to play Garrett Wilson, and I'm going to play George Pickens. I love these three wide receivers that you have, but I think they're all in really good spots. But I'm going to go Garrett Wilson, and I'm going to go with George Pickens here, being in says full PPR. So yeah, that's who I would go with. TX. Knight, Kyron, or Gallup. I'm going to go with Kyron Williams here. Kind of talks about him, played 70% of the snaps last week, saw a decent amount of targets. He's definitely the pass catching running back between him and Cam Akers. And so that's who I would go with there. TX, Foster Moreau, or Everett. I'm going to go with Foster Moreau. Everett, I would love to say it's him, but he just like he's just been like very mid, like he hasn't really gotten the opportunities. he will come through and get you probably 3 for 40, but that is like most tight ends. Let's be honest. Foster Moreau is playing a lot of snaps. There's not a lot of other pass catchers options here, so I'm going to go with Foster Moreau here on this one. Mitch, he's been great. Happy to have him in Dynasty when he figures out the rules. Yeah, for sure. And I think maybe next year. Now we'll have to see. It's definitely possible they bring somebody else in, and this becomes another situation where we've seen in years past. But Damian Pierce, like I said, I don't think this has been a Damian Pierce problem. I think it's just been just they have nobody else. But they are set up pretty nicely next year. They should definitely have the number one overall pick. Hopefully, they can actually get a real quarterback in here and start kind of building this team from the ground up. So their offensive line's actually not terrible when everybody's healthy. They kind of addressed that this year too with adding Kenyon Green, and then they still have Laramie Tunsil. So there's a lot of different stuff this Houston team could do, but they're still a few years away. So we'll see on that. Harris, Van Jefferson, or Gallup. I'm gonna go with Gallup. I just don't really want to play anybody from the Rams wide receiver room with Wolford. I think Kyron makes sense just because you can get a lot of dump offs and stuff like that. And Seattle struggles against the run, but yeah, so I'm gonna go Gallup. So Quez or Garrett Wilson? It's still Garrett Wilson. Like I said, I have Garrett Wilson. If I'm reading this right, yeah, it's Garrett Wilson. I have Garrett Wilson as a top 10 wide receiver this week. Najee or Jamal Williams. I'm going to go Najee Harris and pray that he doesn't get hurt again. Algier or Jerick McKinnon. I'm going to go with McKinnon then on that one with between Tyler Algier and McKinnon. I would go that direction. And then CHB, Geno or Fields. This is the last question. We are going to go with Justin Fields. So we made it solo, an hour and 20 minutes. We are about now about 27 minutes away from kickoff. If you have any more questions, you can jump into our Discord. It's absolutely free. You can find the link to any one of our videos on our channel. If you haven't already, please hit that like and subscribe button. We truly appreciate it. Hope everybody has a good good weekend. Anime CHP asking the questions that I need answered. He's coming through the clutch for you there, Anime. Anyways, I hope everybody has a good week. Let's get some W's this week. We will be back again tonight talking about waivers to get everybody ready for week 14, the last week of the regular season for fantasy football before the playoffs start. Have a good weekend or have a good day. Enjoy this football Sunday. We'll be back again tonight. We'll see you then. Bye.